Let me first introduce briefly our great panelist. Joe is an innovator and early adopter of all things computer related. His primary focus is around the future of technology and speaks globally about legal technology, cybersecurity, blockchain, artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, and robotics. He also serves as a member with the Columbia IBM Blockchain Accelerator, a cybersecurity committee member at the University of South Florida, and is presidential committee appointee to the American Bar Association Center for Innovation Governing Council. Currently, Joe is with Thomson Reuters Legal, managing a team of technologists for both the large law, corporate, and government divisions in the US. Joe serves the top law firms in the world consulting on legal trends and customizing Thomson Reuters legal technology solutions for enhanced workflows. He graduated from Providence College with a BA in economics and sociology and holds a master's in e-commerce and MBA from the University of Maryland Global Campus. Welcome, Joe. What will let me first ask you a bit. Well, just for the rest of the members in this, we are going to have something like half an hour of presentation of Joe, and after that we will open the floor for questions. So you can either do it on the Q&A, but probably it's better if you ask me to have a voice, because it's nicer and it's more interactive. So if you ask me to give you the voice, I will give you the opportunity to do the question to Joe. So Joe, how do you think will be the legal landscape look like after these pandemic times?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really look forward to the opportunity to talk with everyone. And we were talking about this earlier. This truly is a conversation. So as Francis just mentioned, please engage. I'll do a little bit of a talk, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, but even more importantly, what you're experiencing, what you're seeing. So what is going to change? Well, we may no longer have a legal system, right? No, I'm kidding. It's all going to be automated. No, but we are moving in somewhat of that direction faster than I think anybody has ever seen before. So if you could allow me to share my screen. Looks like it's disabled.
You cannot share it?
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh my God, don't tell me that. Okay, all panelists. Now?
There we go, perfect, thank you.
Perfect.
Get this. Okay. Okay, so can you see the screen okay?
Right, yeah.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so obviously we're talking about post-pandemic. We're talking about how the impact of the legal industry is going to sort of change. What I want to do first is talk about the market drivers. What is obviously having an impact on the world as we see it in Europe, in the United States, in Asia, that we've already started to see? Well, there's global change, right? So everyone, for the most part, is this remote connectivity. That's a huge driver, absolutely, right? Cloud reliance. Everyone has now moved to the client, to the cloud. I used to speak with law firms of all sizes around the world that said, absolutely not. We will not go to the cloud. It doesn't make sense. It's not safe. It's not secure. More importantly, our clients are saying, do not do this. So that's clearly changed dramatically and drastically over the last little while. We're also talking about data integration, which is one of the things that we discussed earlier, but we're going to move towards what is a platform. So delivering of workflow to organizations of all sizes, corporations, government agencies, law firms. And the startups are the ones that are really building a lot of this stuff out, which I think is fantastic. And I know that you all are representative among this group. in each one of those areas, which I think is an important part of this. So really quickly, we're seeing a massive change, right? I always like to give 3 quick examples of how fast technology is changing, both personally as well as professionally. So this obviously is more personal initially, but we'll see how that has an impact on the legal industry going forward. Guess what this is? You could see on the fingertip, there's 2 little pieces of dust. This is actually smart dust. It's actually GPS enabled. So people could technically smear that on an individual and you could track that person, or on a car, or on a package. This is the direction we're starting to move with exponential technology, right? The second one, this just came about recently, which I thought was remarkable. I love food. I've been to Barcelona, fantastic city, and amazing food, right? But right now, most of us have a hard time getting out. Sometimes you can't get into the restaurants. Maybe you don't want to go into the restaurants still. There's now a tool that connects to your computer that allows you to taste what food would actually taste like. It's a synthesizer that allows you to leverage salty, sweet, acid, bitter, and umami flavors on your tongue by putting this device up to it. Fantastic. So this is, again, a major leap forward. My favorite, the last of the 3, is, I would love to have been in person with you all, but to talk about this, this is technology that came out of MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's a PhD student, and he's developed this thing that wraps around his ear, goes towards his chin, and has 4 sensors on it. Those 4 sensors basically allow for him to use his mind to communicate with any internet connected device. So he could change the TV channel with his mind. Or if somebody else had this, you're talking about mind reading technology. So he's not even saying words, but he's able to communicate using this device. It's unbelievable, fantastic technology that will, again, filter into the world of legal at some point in time. You can only imagine the privacy implications with this. Maybe the judge has this, and maybe the defendant has it, right? Serious privacy issues, but these are the things that we're going to start to see the next few years. All right, let's get practical. So the state of legal post-pandemic. We all know, you're all technologists. You all love technology. You're passionate about it. We've had the technology around us for quite some time. The startups that are in Spain, the startups that are in the UK, throughout Europe and the United States have been building things out for years. Law firms, traditionally, are a little more conservative, and they haven't necessarily implemented and started to use these. So the technologies existed. Legals waded into this space, so they've started to tiptoe into the space, barely step into the space. Now, it's a catalyst. So the catalyst is the pandemic. So what's forward? What are we doing forward? Well, it's created this psychological conditioning in the legal industry that's pushing things faster than it's ever happened before. Technology is now central, more so than it ever had been before. Think about the courts, virtual courts, all of these things we'll talk about in just a second, but it's pushing fast and hard in this space. This is just for context. I know that every country, every city is looking at this a little bit differently, but to give you the mentality of the way that we're all starting to look at things across the globe, fewer people are commuting, right? And a lot of people didn't necessarily commute as much before anyways. We moved in a different direction. In the United States, the CDC, so the Center for Disease, basically said, do not use public transportation. Given the global warming and the catastrophic issues around that, it seems unreal to think about that, but they're changing the way that they look at these things. So offices are at half capacity. People are starting to think of offices as a hotel. You go there when you need to go there to meet a group, but that's it. You don't need to go in every day at every single time. There are groups creating reservations so that if you want to go to the office, you have to have a reservation. You're doing a temperature check. I spoke with somebody in Hong Kong not long ago, and they had the temperature check. A quiz, 3 questions. Have you felt sick in the last 24 hours? Do you have a fever? And then do you feel okay to be working in this environment? So there's no communal areas. And I know that we're all used to these open areas where people are able to freely talk and engage with each other. That's gone, right? So we're talking about half capacity. Now, what is this leading us to? So we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We're talking about the platform. Now, This is something that is going to take off over the next few years. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about this. Platforms have been around for ages for all of us in many different ways, right? So if you have a smart TV, it potentially has a platform on it, and the platform allows you to download apps onto it, right? So you might want to download Netflix, or again, this might be regionally specific, but Prime for Amazon or iHeartRadio or some sort of network that you have always enjoyed. You're able to download to the platform, that sort of thing. You have it on your phone. So I'm an Android person, so I have my Android phone, and I'm downloading, obviously, the apps to that. Clearly, as you all know, it's fairly straightforward, but it allows you to get contents onto that platform. Now, what is so important about this is that there are 6 components to it. So the platform itself creates the environment. So it's probably in the cloud, right? So it's SaaS enabled. It creates basic rules of governance so that every single app that wants to come play on this platform has to meet with those rules about privacy, data security, all of these different components together, right? Creates standards. So, and this is very, very important for a lot of different organizations, containerized security around the app so that you know what that app is doing and what it's collecting going forward, right? Creates a network effect so that more people, more organizations, more law firms, government agencies, corporations that all start to participate, creates more of a dynamic environment for that, enables the interactions, and then eventually, for you startups out there, it allows you to program your application onto it so that you say, okay, I meet with the rules, and here you go, you upload it, and then people will get access to that. Why is this happening now? Because of this, right? So a few years ago when I was talking about this, there were probably 300 to 400 startups, legal tech startups throughout the world. Now there's 3,000 to 4,000, right? There's tons. So this is what we're talking about. So how do you get these applications to talk to each other? What if you want to share some pieces of information from one app to another because it's a logical progression for workflow? Well, this platform will allow you to do that. And the idea, quite simply, is that you have this almost, if you're familiar with like a SharePoint, it's like that, but it's a lot easier to work with. You have your set of applications. It'll interact with Microsoft Office. It'll be completely open. So G Suite, if you're using Google, as your organization does. Maybe you connect with iManage and Kira and Yota Logic and NetDocs. It uses an SSO, so a single sign-on, right? So the ability, so that once you sign on, it knows who you are across all of the applications, so that it makes it so that you can interact with all of these different components. Why is this all sort of coming together? So you're able to collaborate. It's the ability to collaborate across for you at the organization, with your law firms, with your corporate partners. You're able to create that legal processes. So the processes built into this using various tools in there. And then those project managers or those partners are able to manage the complex pieces of projects and transactions together with all of that. These are the components that you will probably see on that platform: the extranets, the portals, the document collaboration, the project management, the transaction management. Basically, everything you can think of will fall onto this platform. I'm going to look forward to hear what you all have to say about this in just a few minutes as I wrap up here. So what does this look like in a practical standpoint? Well, you log in the morning, it greets you. It says, oh, welcome. Could be anybody, Joe. Here's what you have in progress. Here are the applications that you have. You have access to research applications, to workflow products, to outside contract analysis applications, to your Outlook and to your Word. All of those things come together as you work through this. And it sees the documents that you're working on and your team members, your key contacts. All of that falls onto the platform in a really seamless and easy way of going about it. So because of time, I won't spend too much more time on this, but those are the basics. You have a universal or global search, being able to search across all of your document repositories, pulling in information from your vendors through APIs, notifications, marketplace, SSO integration. All of this comes together. And again, different applications It's open source in a way, and not open source. It's openly managed so that you could bring your applications into this space. So as a recap to the platform, this is cloud-based. It's going to have an app store, so a legal app store. Think about whatever you use in iOS or Android. It's secure and it's interoperable. That is a big component of this. Now, going forward, there's a lot of information here. What I want to do is talk about a lot of the other things that are happening out there. So the post-pandemic, we're seeing organizations moving to dispute resolution that's online. There's a organization called Claros that's based out of Argentina that is using blockchain-enabled technology, wisdom of the crowds, which means that they don't have judges. They have people that aren't even specialists in this, but what they do is they look at both sides of the case and they make a decision. And you get a group of people to do that, and ultimately it's secured on the blockchain. It's then the decision is issued, and then those judges actually get paid out on it. But it's using wisdom of the crowds in a really specialized economics model to prove that this does work. So online dispute resolution is definitely going to have an impact going forward. We're seeing much more of it now. Automation. We all know this really, really well. I'll cut to the chase here. So on that platform, and among a lot of other applications that you all are probably working with, APIs are king. The algorithms, of course, within AI are getting faster, are getting better. They're interacting with blockchains, basically your database, to save information. You're building workflows, and they're all being integrated into that platform. So that's the sort of automation that we're going to see, and it's been accelerated across the globe going forward. This thing is shocking maybe for some, maybe not for others. In the US, and then I'll parlay it into what's going on in Europe. In the US, during the downturn because of the pandemic, one of our bills, so before it becomes a law, it's a bill, right? And someone had written up into it that we need to come up with digital currency in the United States. China's doing it. They're doing a POC of it right now. Russia's doing it. We're probably going to see in the next 2 years a digital dollar. I know that they're looking at that for the euro as well, and that's going to have an amazing impact on how people interact, how transactional work is done. And so what we're talking about is a digital wallet that's connecting people, that's possibly bypassing banks. So I'm able to send so the government sends me a stimulus check for whatever that is. It goes onto my digital wallet. I'm able to then send it to other people, pay for my whatever. I don't necessarily have to go through a bank to do that. Again, another movement forward in that space. Clearly, illegal impacts, new financial systems, disruptors to banks, access to everyone. So there are, in the United States, we have issues with the unbanked. People actually don't have access to banks. So I'm sure that's kind of pretty much everywhere in some sense. Digital ID, and I'll be very quick about this, but this is what we're talking about, is the ability to take all of your personal information, and we'll get into the data privacy thing in a second, have it encrypted, it's safe, it's on your phone. One of the big concerns around the world is that you have all this information centralized, and then people can attack that, hack it, pull it out. We had an instance where 150 million people in the United States, all of their information was taken. So their state identifiers, their social security number, their birth certificate information, where they live, all of that was taken. And it's on, they thought it was on the dark web, but now according to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, it's with China. So the idea is decentralization on this so that people, unfortunately, sometimes people are hacked individually, and that will go forward for forever. Unfortunately, we'll still see that happen. But the large-scale breaches, the control of our information through GDPR, where there's mandates set in place where information has to be forgotten, all of that, those are big components going forward with this. And we'll get into more detail in a second. So tokenization, hopefully, I think you all probably have heard about this before, but every single asset that you own will soon be tokenized. So Francis, you have a Picasso on the back of your wall there, I see, right? And so that Picasso, A Picasso may be worth $70 million. Now it sits there on the back of your wall. I know we're kidding about that, but you can actually tokenize that. So you could sell portions of that, or you could rent it out by giving it a digital representation of it, put onto the blockchain. They're starting to do that in the UK with buildings. So office buildings are being tokenized so that if you wanted to invest in an office building, a prime office building in Barcelona or in Madrid, you could do so through this asset tokenization component. You can see all the different types of asset tokenization up on your screen, and I won't go into any more detail about that. But that's yet another area that's going to start to take off. Notaries. Someone had asked if I could talk about notaries on this. Fascinating enough, one of the things that changed for this is that it's simply virtual. So there's several companies out there that are doing this. Quite honestly, you do a Zoom meeting just like this. So it'd be you and I pull up the document, I fill it out with you. I actually present my ID. I show it to you on the screen. You look at it. Maybe you take a screen capture of that, has my face, has my ID, and then you're able to go forward with that remote notary, which is really fast and cool and easy to do, right? So ease of access, client impact, and so forth. This I bring up. You may raise an eyebrow or two, but there's a reason for it. So VR, MR, AR stands for virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality. Believe it or not, in the next year, you should see something that comes out from Apple called Apple Glass. Now, the company that I'm at, Thomson Reuters, we're fortunate to get our laptops issued by our organization. And then they're really nice because they give us an iPad. I think going forward in the next refresh of us giving a new computer, they'll also get us these glasses because as everyone's working remotely, you're going to need to, Zoom is great, right? So we're able to interact here, you're able to see me, and that's wonderful. But what if you were all able to sit around the table together in a virtualized room? You have the avatar of me, I apologize for my look, and you can see everybody else. And you're able to interact with them way better. And so this virtual reality is coming. And I think once it hits the market with Apple, we'll see everybody else starting to use it because we know it's out there. Oculus has been doing it for quite some time in gaming. And then a company called Magic Leap has been promising this for quite some time too. They're based out of Florida, United States. And there's many other companies working on this too. So remote capabilities, connectivity, think about the applications that are going to fall on top of that. It is going to be amazing and it's going to be really, really useful going forward. In just the last few minutes here, I want to close out on a few things. So law school. Law schools are definitely being impacted by this. There's two areas in particular that are being more impacted than anything else. I'd say law schools and the courts. When we're talking about the legal industry, there are a lot of people, young students that are reconsidering what they're doing. There's a bit of a moment in time where they're like, do I want to go to law school anymore? Do I want to become a lawyer? Do I want to practice? And I know it varies all over the place, but sometimes I've met with people that are working 80 to 120 hours a week, right? That's a lot of time. Do they want to do that still? Maybe they want to go to law school and they want to do something in the legal tech space. There's tons of opportunity there. Maybe they want to reinvent the way that we're working in the practice of law and the business of law. So there's new career paths that are coming out of this. The gig economy. So you're starting to see some law firms operate differently. Maybe they're hiring people for shorter periods of time. And maybe they're bringing people on all as partners, but you have to fish. You catch your client and you work with them and then you get the profits from that. So a lot more profit sharing. So a lot of changes in this space that we can certainly get into in the conversation as well. The courts, this is extremely straightforward. I try not to spend too much time on this. There are 3 types of courts now. Some are still somehow doing it in person, but the virtual courts, they're doing it video, just like this. Or they're doing teleconference, just phone calls. Video, in my opinion, is still better. And then there's the written responses. So globally, you're still seeing people write their briefs, send it in. The courts are looking at it. Both sides are looking at it, and they're sending it back. So written responses back and forth on that side. And then back to the data privacy part. Now, this is just a quick anecdote, so quick story. Throughout the world, you're seeing more than 45 countries roll out digital ankle bracelets, basically tracking on your phone. Now, when we think about GDPR, and we think about what's going on in the United States, and we think about the privacy rules that are happening, this is a really tough one. I know that we all want, the GDPR thing, I personally believe is a wonderful thing. But when you're talking about health, when you're talking about the greater good for how people interact and survive, literally survive, does that impinge on our privacy and what we have? And in our perfect mindset of like, let's have the right to be forgotten. Let's give people the right to access of our information. When you have the need to track people because people are contaminated in different places and that's being spread, and the spikiness that we just talked about starting to happen, unfortunately, in Barcelona, and it's happening everywhere. We'll see it probably pop up again in the fall, but in winter, this is yet another issue with data privacy. In the last 2 minutes, I'll mention one or two things. So facial recognition is something that everyone's battling with right now. It has a lot of potential use cases that are good, and there's a lot that's not. One, there's issues with profiling. So that can clearly not be fair for many people. So that's one issue with it. But we're seeing in China is probably one end of the spectrum with a social score where they have 3.5 million cameras, I believe in Beijing alone, and it looks at everyone walking across the street. It can recognize them if they're jaywalking. So if they're walking across illegally, it knows who they are and it knocks their score down. So it could have an impact on if they apply for a loan going forward. Or if they do a number of things like they're smoking in public where there's a sign right above them that says, no public smoking, no fumar, por favor. But they're actually smoking, then again, their credit gets knocked down and they may not be able to travel outside of China. So again, more issues, productivity scores. If you're at an organization that traditionally has not been letting people work from home, some of them are fairly skeptical about this, which still, I come from an organization that's very progressive and they've had people working from home for the last 14 years. But in this instance, they're able to look at how I work on my computer for 14 days. And over the 14 days, it says, Joe, you did this right, or you whatever. It saw that I did things and I didn't do things, and it looked at that and determined going forward whether I was being productive or not. So I'm going to maybe stop there given timing, but the last thing I'll mention is DeepFakes. You've probably heard about these. There's a video that comes up. I won't play it because it's like 2 minutes long, but that's our previous President Obama, United States, and that's not him really speaking, but it looks like him, it sounds like him. And going forward, we're going to see a ton of, sadly, deepfakes in our political worlds, in Spain, in Europe, in Asia, United States, where people are pretending to be a leader and they'll launch something out a few minutes before. How does that have an impact on the legal industry, on how people practice, on the data privacy components too? So, all right, I'm going to stop there because I want to be conscious of time, and I also want to, of course, hear your questions and really discussion. I'd love to hear just pure discussion here too. So,
thanks.
All right.
Thanks very much, Joe, for this fresh air about how do you see the future. I think it has been really inspiring for a lot of us. And I was thinking, well, in your talks, and I have written a question that is not prepared. I'm sorry, but first is about what you mentioned about this counterbalance between privacy and intimacy with security and health. You know, I was reading just this morning that in Israel, that it's well, I can say it's quite an invasive country in terms of security. They are quite concerned. They are really very high concern about security. So and they have launched apps to really track the people that has COVID and so on. So I was reading that 12,000 people were wrongly locked down because the app. So they have not been able to go out because you have been in contact with this person that he has the virus, so you cannot move. So this is really a discussion about how to really ensure security against privacy. We have really a long discussion here, and probably we will never have the answer, the right answer for that. I was thinking also before that about there's a concern also at least in large law firms about the junior lawyers. So how large law firms are going to ensure that the junior lawyers, their learning process goes up if legal tech and apps are going to do their job? So how do you see that we are going to achieve this growth on the path career of the junior lawyers, Joe?
It's a great question. So what happens to the junior associates, the junior lawyers that potentially some of these applications, some of these pieces of software, AI, could take some of their roles, right? We've already seen that. So for better or for worse, we've seen that within the e-discovery space. So I know many of my peers when I came out of grad school had gone to law school, and the first thing they did was go to a law firm, and they spent honestly 100 hours a week reviewing documents. So is this document relevant or not? And so they would sit there and they would just spend all this time. And now we have e-discovery tools that can basically do 70% of that work, right? So you certainly know this, but they do 70% of reviewing of, let's say, 1 billion documents. You're looking for 5 keywords. I'm making it really simplistic, but 5 keywords among those 1 billion documents. Well, you have a computer that can go to those documents, review all of those in, let's say, I don't know, a week, and come back with the relevant documents for then humans to look at. Now, if you talk to most of those attorneys back then, they're like, I don't know why I went to law school. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever had to do, and I can't believe I'm doing this, and I'm going brain dead. And I know a lot of people just left the world because of it. But what you started to see were attorneys then turning towards other things where they could actually be more creative, work with the partners on drafting briefs, or work on new ways of engaging their clients. So what it's going to start to do, while it'll take away in the beginning, it'll take away these layers of things that people don't want to do anyways. It'll force them to start thinking about things differently and to engage with clients a little bit more and to engage with the law firm at a different level to come up with new ways of doing things. So I think they'll use their brilliance, because they're all brilliant, in a different way. So I think there's a lot of potential going forward for them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Of course, it does. So there's a question in the Q&A. So please, all the rest of the people, if you want to ask questions, either you do it, you type on the Q&A, or you let me know, and I will give you the voice, please. Alberto Rey saying, hi, Joe, what is the limit between necessary information and privacy?
Between necessary, oh, geez, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. You know, I think it's honestly dependent on the norms and the values and the ethics of the community that you're with. So I think that varies. We're seeing that, right? So it varies in China versus maybe United States versus Europe. And even in Europe, you're going to see differences for what people believe is fair, what is right, and what is normal, what is acceptable. And then that stuff sort of hopefully gets battled out among your legislature and your leaders, but also organically from the people themselves. I know that's actually becoming increasingly more difficult in certain political regimes around the world where it's maybe more autocratic. But I think there's this ebb and flow, right? So you go from a world that maybe right now is tad more conservative in the sense where some of these leaders around the world are very much like, this is the way it's going to be. That's it. And then you start to see people revolt and not pleased, and then it starts to switch, and then all of a sudden it moves in the other direction. And I think right now we're here, which is some of the leaders around the world, don't want to call out too many countries, but I certainly could call out the United States. But there's several in Europe that are on the same side. In fact, one just happened, an election was confirmed yesterday in Eastern Europe. But so I think eventually we're going to start to see this happen. And so that's the hope. So right now it's a matter of everyone sort of voicing their concerns, their thoughts on this. But in light of what's going on with the pandemic, I think we all have to be aware that hopefully by us giving up some information about where we are or who we're connected with, it's just frightening. When the government knows that, or somebody knows that, a private company knows that, even though it's been happening with Google and Facebook and all these other ones for a while, it does make you think like, this is for the greater good. I mean, there's a lot of people that are sick. If we are able to contain this, then yeah. So hopefully that makes some sense. Good,
thanks. I have also another question for you. There is always, well, Spain is a country of small law firms. It's plenty of really small law firms, no? And sometimes you say, okay, it's quite difficult for small law firms to fight against large law firms when you are dealing with big clients, no? So do you believe that, or do you see in the future that small law firms connected could fight the legal army of the large law firm, Joe?
It's an excellent question. One of my favorite questions, because it's something I'm kind of passionate about. I'm very fortunate to talk to the small law firms, medium law firms, and global large law firms. And what I have found is that the smaller firms are probably almost best positioned to go after some of the bigger clients now, because of the tools that are out there, because of the nimbleness. If those smaller law firms and medium-sized firms are, like, we're open to technology, we're open to thinking about things differently. A lot of the bigger firms are not. A lot of the bigger firms have their models in place, and it makes their partners or the people at the top very happy because things are working well. They have been working well. But sometimes they're not as nimble, and sometimes they're not as open to using the newer tools, to engaging with startups. So engage with startups, engage with the universities. When I was in the UK, before the pandemic, one of the things that came up frequently was that medium-sized law firms and smaller law firms were opening the door to partnering with startups, to partnering with the law schools, sometimes partnering with the law schools, the engineering programs, so like the computer science groups, and some of the schools of medicine, like psychology, psychiatry, sociology, about how these things all start to come together, how you work with people, interact with people, how something looks in a document. All of that starts to come together. So I personally, honestly believe that the smaller firms are really well positioned right now to go after some of the bigger clients and bigger possibilities that are out there.
Good. We have a couple of questions. One from Ferran saying, regarding court technology, video hearings are here to stay. Do you think that we will see systems that will analyze video hearing as we do with text in case law?
It's out there. So the technology is out there, right? So we can apply algorithms that currently read both of our faces, and every expression that I have right now can be interpreted by the computer. I hate to say this, but there are companies in the United States, I don't know, I'm sure it's in Europe too, but they don't talk about it as much or whatever the case is, but they use it for interviews. So if I'm interviewing for a position that you have right now at your law firm, I'm sitting here and I'm reacting to you, and the computer is actually looking at my eyebrows, it's looking at my eyes, my mouth, my smile, and at multiple points around my face, and it's saying, at this moment in time, it says the time stamp, and it says happy, sad, frown, he's not sure, like question in his head, he's lying, stuff like that is actually coming out. So you could apply that to the courts right now, but we're probably not going to see that for quite some time, maybe never. Again, it's one of those things that's going to be put into the hands of the people, into the law firms, into the courts, into the governments that you're working with right now in respective countries. But the technology is there. It's just like that beginning slide where it says, like, here's the box of technology. Yeah. Just open it up. If you want to open up, we have to be intelligent about what we're using from that box as you pull it out. But it's there. And now it's a matter of whether or not we implement it and use it. If any startups are on the line, they could actually consider leveraging that. I don't think anybody's probably thought about that just yet in terms of using it for the courts. So yeah, another business you just started right there.
I think also Emilio Martinez start to write a question, but I only see Hi Joe now in the, if you want to, he's here. Okay, from Emilio Martinez, he says, Hi Joe, what's your opinion related to alternative legal service provider? After pandemic, do you think that the ALSP will have more hand or space in the legal sector?
Yes, based on everything that I've seen, people I've spoken with, articles I've also read, and I even wrote some on this recently.
Deloitte, Deloitte those days with Emergy Force, Emily Force.
Yes, you got it. Yeah, no, I think that it's definitely an area that there's multiple smaller companies that are doing this. There's also, of course, the big four that are starting to take away a decent amount of business from the global large laws, the biggest law firms, maybe even some smaller and medium-sized firms. And people wonder why they would go with them. It's happened more in Europe than it has in the United States, just because of the way that things are set up. In Europe, it's a little bit more free. They can compete a little bit more easily than they can in the United States. The United States has a bit of a monopolistic view. This is being recorded, isn't it? It has a different view on how law firms can interact, whereas you actually have to be barred, you have to be licensed to run the organization. And I believe in certain parts of Europe, you can be a business and you can own the law firm. And that's a totally different way of looking at it. And I actually think it's better. It makes things more progressive. And things that I've seen in Europe overall, in general, you see law firms are more progressive than in the United States. The use of technology and how they run the business of law and how they execute on how they work as practitioners, attorneys, how they practice. So fundamentally, what you see with those ASLPs are end-to-end. They can do everything for you. They can cover your taxes. They can cover your legal issues. They can cover your incorporation. So it's this full package that they offer that the law firms don't necessarily do. So Richard Susskind, who I think most of you have either heard of or watched before, read his books, mentioned recently on a Legal Geek seminar that he sees that law firms are actually going to have to switch and become more like those alternative service providers, which is an interesting bent. So think about law firms opening up, I don't know, marketing shops and accounting shops and different components that fall outside of the strict legal space. So it makes it so they can then compete.
Good. About of compete and competitors. One question here from Ferran is about some of them. Regarding software distribution, what do you think about initiatives like Rain & Court, the App Store for legal applications? Do you think this kind of model will succeed?
So forgive me, what was the first sentence you said? Rather than
regarding software distribution, what do you think about initiatives like Rain & Court?
So to be fair, I work for a company, Thomson Reuters, and I'm a person of history, so I love history, and I think it's important to cite where things started. So Rain & Court actually came up with the original legal platform. Now, the idea behind it, the person that started it, said there's thousands of these startups. They're not talking to each other. And most importantly, in the back of their minds was security. So with all these law firms and corporations being breached all the time, Their concern was, hey, can we come up with a containerized application that can sit on this platform and they can talk to each other? And so they came up with the idea. I believe that I can't speak for exactly what my thoughts are on the company, but the idea of the legal platform, I do believe will take off over the next several years. And that's what they're building. So, and Thomson Reuters is doing the same thing. There's actually 2 others that are out there. Shoot, it just slipped my mind. I'll think about it in a second, but there's 4 of them technically that are out there.
Perfect. One question more about from Cristina Serrano. She says, how established are collaborative platforms between clients and law firms to date?
How established are the
collaboration platforms?
Corporation.
Collaboration platforms.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's my English. Sorry.
No, you're fine. My ears are. So the collaboration platforms. Now, there's multiple platforms out there that are more, I would say, software specific. So they'll do a specific task. And what we're starting to see now are, because of APIs and the ability for these to connect to other platforms is starting to grow, or applications is starting to grow. One that I'm more familiar with is something called Contract Express. So Contract Express allows you to take an exemplar document, so a perfect document for, let's say it's a lease. I want to rent a property in Barcelona, and you have to do 1,000 of these because you have an organization that has 1,000 different leases or buildings. And you have the same lease for each one because it's standardized, it's easy, but you need to change the landlords, the tenants, the lease terms, and how much it costs, right? So now they have the ability to connect that to other databases to pull information, to bring in alerts saying, okay, this lease needs to be signed in the next 60 days. Then it connects to a digital signature application. So an API that says, okay, the person now gets it and they're digitally signing it because it's easier. And then it's automatically stored in this cloud. And then it knows that it's saving it to this is a little bit further out, saves it to the blockchain so that anybody can look at that who's supposed to look at it. It's secured. It's never been augmented or changed. It's immutable. So we're getting to the point where it's getting better and better. It's still relatively early in the stages of being able to do that, but it's moving along. Yes.
Good. Another one from Albert. She say, okay, Joe, in your opinion, what are the 3 top legal tech startups that we should know?
The 3 top legal tech startups. Man, that's a great question. There are so many of them. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at something real quick because I'm trying to think. I'll break it down into different spaces because I think that's only fair because there's so many of them. So I'm a big fan of Kira out there. So contract management and analysis. And Kira, basically what it does is, and if you're not familiar, most probably are, let's say you have 1 million documents, contracts. So you have, no, it's probably better. You have a merger of 2 organizations and they both have 10,000 employees, but you need to look at both of the organization's contracts for every employee. You're looking for what we call golden parachute language, or language that's different than the norm. That if there is a merger, that person gets 10 million euros. They automatically give them 10 million euros just because there's a merger, right? So what the contract analysis does is it goes through it, looks for particular language, pulls that out and gives it to people to take a look at. It's really kind of neat. It's progressive. So that's kind of a neat space there. What other ones? I do like, you saw my reference to the other tool, the blockchain tool that's out there, just because I think it's really neat in dispute resolution. So that was a kind of a cool one as well. So that was Claros. And then one other one really quickly. it's somewhat sacrilegious for me to say this, but there are some tools out there that basically allow for any human being that has any legal issues whatsoever to just log on to their computer and through like Rocket Lawyer, I need a contract for something. I'm selling my car. I'm selling my house. I just need a basic contract that does something. So it puts the law in someone's hand, so they can do it very easily. So those are three quick ones. I could send you a whole bunch more later. Sorry.
Good, good. Okay, I think we're reaching to the end of the session. So we have now one more question. Is more global. It's not about technology. So is Emilio saying again, what is the biggest challenge that big law firms have in the coming months and not years?
In the coming months, I personally think it's education. I think it's education to help people understand, specifically the attorneys that are working in one particular practice area. And that's what they do. So they have, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, they have the blinders on because they're focusing on what they need to do day in and day out. So they're working on IP, so intellectual property, every day, making sure that they understand this, they know it, everything. But they need to sort of open up and say, okay, where is this really going to go? What new tools, what new technologies will impact the way that I do my job? How can I do my job better to help my clients? And so it's like opening it up and letting maybe even the law firm support individuals, the technologists at the law firms, to do more presentations around these are the new technologies. This is how maybe blockchain will impact you. This is how OCR engines, machines can help you do your job better. And I think that helps within the next few months to going forward and beyond too.
Okay, I think we have no more questions in the pipeline. So I think we have covered quite a lot of
that was
the session. Yeah, there was a lot. But it has been really, again, really inspiring for us. I believe I have had some texting in the WhatsApp and so I say, okay, I like it really a lot. So it's been very nice. So I really want to thank you again and appreciate really your time and your and your care with all of us with the hub. So we just hope to see you soon and willing to be face to face. So hopefully in our sometime big event that we are planning. And well, I think that's all from our side. So we will come back in September with more stuff on webinars for the members. So thank you also to all the attendants that have been here listening to you. And we have recorded the session, so we'll provide some about this also in social networks to make a bit more of awareness about what we are doing. So thank you very much again, Joe, and really keep healthy and safe.
Thank you so much to you and to everyone else. I really appreciate the time. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right, take care.
Keep in touch. Bye-bye.